Hello Year 4, welcome to your first online English activity. Today we're going to be thinking about the skills that we need when we're approaching an unfamiliar text, when we're looking at a text that we haven't met before. We're going to be thinking about two skills. The first skill that we're going to be thinking about is a vocabulary skill. We're going to be using clues in the text to work out what a word means if it's a word that we haven't met before or that we've met in a different context. So we're going to be using clues in the text to work out the meaning of unfamiliar words. The second skill that we're going to be working on is an inference skill. We're going to be looking at a character's motivations. So we're going to be thinking about why a character chooses to behave in the way that they behave in the story, and what clues in the text we can find to support our ideas. So if we look back at our VIPERS acronym, we use this acronym in school to represent the skills that we need when we look at a text for the first time, when we look at an unfamiliar text. Each letter in the acronym represents a different skill. So V represents vocabulary skills, I represents infer, P represents predict, E represents explain, R represents retrieve, and S represents summarise. And in today's lesson we're going to be looking at V and I, vocabulary and infer. If you'd like to turn to this page in your home learning pack, this is going to be our unfamiliar text. So just looking at this text, we can see straight away that there are two clues about what it could be about. If we look at the heading here, it says it's a story starter. So that means it must be a fiction text. It must be a text about something that's been made up, because stories are always fiction texts. They're made up texts. That tells me it's unlikely to be about something that's real. It's not likely to be about a real house. It's more likely to be about something that's been made up. There's another big clue. A picture here. It looks like there's a house in the hill. That looks quite mythological or legendary, and I can think of some other texts or films that maybe I've seen where there's a house in the hill and little people live in a house in the hill. I wonder if you can think of any as well. Okay, now it's a story starter, so that's another clue, because I know that that means it won't be the whole story. There might be things that I think, I don't know what that means. I don't know why that's happening. It's just the beginning of the story. Okay, so I'm going to read the story to us. They had lived there for as long as he could remember. Generations and generations passed, but very little changed. They kept themselves to themselves, hidden away from the world. Solitary, peaceful, different. They enjoyed staying out of the limelight. They enjoyed letting other people be the centre of attention. They were strange folk in a way, small and strange. However, they were also very, very interesting. These small folk were entirely unique, as you are about to find out. Thank you for listening. This time I'm going to read the text again, and it would be great if you could underline 3 words that you haven't met before, or that you might have met in a different context. So you might have heard in conversation or read in another text, but not in the context of a story like this. Okay. They had lived there for as long as he could remember. Generations and generations passed, but very little changed. They kept themselves to themselves, hidden away from the world. Solitary, peaceful, different. They enjoyed staying out of the limelight. They enjoyed letting others be the centre of attention. They were strange folk in a way, small and strange. However, they were also very, very interesting. These small folk were entirely unique, as you are about to find out. Okay, thank you for underlining your 3 words. I'm going to have a look at my 3 words. Here they are. So my 3 words are on the left-hand side, 3 words that I either haven't met before or I've met before in a different context. And on the right-hand side here, I've drawn some pictures to match the words, but they're all jumbled up at the moment, and we'll be sorting them out in a minute. Okay, let's think about each of these words in turn, and we can use the text that we've read to give us some clues about what the words could mean. First of all, we'll look at this adjective, unique. It's a describing word. It describes the noun, so it's talking about something unique. I'm going to read the sentence it comes from in the text, because that might give me a few more clues about how it's been used in this text by the author. These small folk were entirely unique, as you are about to find out. Entirely unique? It's like the author really wants us to know that they're unique. That's a really important part of their personality. It's an important characteristic of them. They're unique, entirely so. They're absolutely 100% completely unique. So that means it's an important adjective to look at. I'm going to read the rest of the rest of the paragraph, because I might be able to find some other adjectives that are used to describe these little people that might help me to figure out what unique means in this context. They were strange folk in a way, small and strange. However, they were also very, very interesting. These small folk were entirely unique, as you are about to find out. So the other adjectives used in this paragraph are strange, small and interesting. So I think unique must be linked to being strange, small and interesting in this context. So maybe these people are different. Maybe they're mythological people. Maybe they're different to humans. I wonder. I've heard that word, the adjective unique, used in a really positive way before in conversation. I've heard it used as something that is really great to be. I've heard people say everybody in the world is unique. Everybody's different. Everybody has their own personality and experiences. Everybody has their own DNA. Everybody has their own fingerprints. Everybody's unique. So I think it must mean that the little people are different, and different in a good way. Yeah. So could you pause the video and find one of the pictures and put your finger on it, and that you think would match the adjective unique, being different in a good way? Did you pick this one? Yeah. I drew a person by themselves with little dashes around them to show that they're absolutely fantastic the way they are. They're different in a good way. I'm going to put that on top of unique. Okay, let's look at generations. Yeah, there we are. So generations is the second one. I'm going to look at the context of that word in the sentence, in the paragraph. So generations and generations passed, but very little changed. That's interesting. So generations passed. So something's moving. I've heard people say that time passes. People say time flies. So maybe generations is linked to time, because time passes and generations also pass. There's a conjunction used there, isn't there, if we look at that sentence? But very little changed. It's as though the author's surprised that even though the generations passed, very little changed. It must be something to do with time, because we expect things to change over time. I'm going to read the sentence before as well. I get more of an idea from that paragraph about what generations could mean. They had lived there for as long as he could remember. Generations and generations passed, but very little changed. So it's as though the author is surprised by how little has changed. And he's trying to think back to how long they've lived there for. But even though he goes right back to the beginning of his memory, he can't remember. They've always been there for as long as he can remember. Now, generations is another word that I've heard in a context that isn't the same as a story. So I've heard it in conversations. I've heard people say that there are lots of generations in my family. I've heard them say that my nephew is the generation below me, that I'm the generation below my mum. My mum is the generation below my grandma. My grandma is the generation below my great-grandma. So I wonder if generations is something to do with different stages in a family. Could you pause the video and put your finger on the drawing that you think matches generations? You to go for that one. That's good. That's supposed to be a baby, and then a child, and then a teenager, and then an adult. So it's meant to show time passing and people getting older. Look at this one. Top of generations. Yeah. Okay, let's have a look at the final word, solitary. Again, I'm going to look for the context of this word in the text. So I'm going to look at the sentence. Solitary, peaceful, different. They enjoyed staying out of the limelight. So solitary is an adjective that's used in a group of 3 adjectives to describe these little people. They're solitary, peaceful, different. So it must be something to do with them being unique. Maybe different to other people. That's interesting. And after that colon, there's another clause, and that clause almost looks as though it's clarifying why those 3 adjectives have been used. So why the people are solitary, peaceful and different. It says they enjoyed staying out of the limelight. I've heard that expression used before. If you're in the limelight, you like to be influencing other people and sort of being the centre of attention in a good way, maybe. But they didn't want to do that. They enjoyed staying out of the limelight. So they're solitary, peaceful and different. And that's why I put this picture here of a person standing away from the others. They like to be by themselves. People say hamsters are solitary animals. They like to be by themselves. And you shouldn't have two hamsters in a cage together because they really don't like that. They prefer to be alone. So they're solitary. There we are. So today we've looked at 3 words that we hadn't met before, and we've used clues in the text to figure out the meaning of the words. So we're going to move on now to the inference part of our lesson. We've got a question here. Why did the small people stay out of the limelight? Why did the small folk stay out of the limelight? This is a picture of somebody being in the limelight. Somebody being on the stage, influencing other people, sharing their ideas. They'd be making a speech. And I've put no here, and a big cross, because the little people didn't want that. They stayed out of the limelight. They actively stayed away from other people. And they didn't want to influence others. They didn't want other people to know that they were there. So I started a mind map over here. I've put my question in the middle. And I put one adjective, shy. I thought maybe they wanted to stay away from other people because they were shy of them. They didn't want them to know that they were there. Maybe they didn't really want to talk to them. I put here a little drawing of what's meant to be a bear, because I thought maybe they were vulnerable to being eaten by predators because they were so small. They were smaller than the average human. They were like a different, like mythological type of people that were smaller than humans. So actually they would be quite vulnerable to being eaten. And the sentence in the text that made me think that is they kept themselves to themselves, hidden away from the world. That's quite active. You're hiding away from the world. Yeah. So that bear is meant to be saying raw, and that's why he has a speech bubble. He's coming to get them. So your job, you've got 3 choices. You could either draw my mind map and finish it off. You could draw one of your own, or you could write some sentences about why you think the small folk chose to stay out of the limelight. Okay, if you want to pause the video here and have a go at that task. Thank you very much for having a look at that task. Well done. You've worked really, really hard today. Let's just remind ourselves of the 2 skills that we've learnt today. So first of all, we've thought about our vocabulary skills, looking at clues in the text to figure out words that we might not have met before or we might have met in a different context. And secondly, we've thought about our inference skills. We've thought about why a character chooses to behave the way that they do and the clues that we can get from the text to support our ideas. So if you ask your parent or carer's permission, you could send a message on Class Dojo letting me know why you think the small people chose to stay out of the limelight. Thank you for your hard work, and I'll see you tomorrow for another online English lesson. Bye!